Hey, what's up, everybody? Pat here, gratefully covering alcoholic and addict, just like every day. Guys, please don't forget to subscribe, leave the video a like, drop me a comment, and by all means share it with anybody you think might get something out of it. Whew, a lot of breath. A lot to say in one breath. Happy Sunday, everybody. How y'all doing? It was a good, very good day, really good day. And I tell you what, here's a difference. I woke up this morning. I must have slept really wrong because my back was absolutely killing me. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym because it's my Sunday morning thing. I really look forward to it. And I figured I could stretch it out. And when I first got on the weight bench, because it's my chest day, the first couple reps, I'm like, ooh, like it almost like a shooting pain up my back. So I stopped and I did a bunch of stretching. And I went on with my workout. And I didn't max out today. I stopped. I went light. I only went up to like 375 pounds on the bench, and I was gonna push myself and be like, I know I could do it, but I'm like, no, like I know I've been doing it regularly. Why risk injury, right? And then when I was taking my vitamins, one of them had gotten stuck in my throat, and I got it to go down. But what I didn't realize is it didn't go all the way down, and it was slowly dissolving. So by the time I walked out of the gym, I burped, and I'm like, oh, my mouth started watering, and sure enough, I had to pull over, and I vomited, and those two things alone in the past would have ruined my day, would have come home, pissed and moaned, and, not gone to my meeting, not met my sponsor, not went and met with Ed and called Doug and do that. No, I didn't do that today, guys. I pulled over, I drank some water, made sure I felt okay. Went and got another coffee to wash the taste out of my mouth. And I went on to an NA meeting this morning. And then I went and met with my sponsor afterwards. It was nice. It was a decent house. We went down, sat at a beautiful park, had a great talk. From there, I went over to my buddy Doug's dad's house and went over a bunch of stuff there and kind of got things finalized, though we're nowhere near done with it. But I got everybody satisfied, everybody talking again, everybody calmed down. We're all on the same page, and that felt good, right? And then further, my friend Doug had got it, and this is a public service announcement for anybody. When I was at the registry recently, there was a big notice about watch out for the latest scam is fake parking tickets. Well, sure enough, Doug had gotten, I believe it was an email, but it might have been a text, and it was in a very official looking thing saying, and here's the thing, it didn't say your license was going to be suspended or non-renewed. It was more of like a court threat, and it had a QR code to scan. So I came home. He asked me to handle it. I came home. I scanned it, and immediately it comes up as a past due parking ticket. And then because it was only $6.99, I almost went online and paid it for him. And I'm like, no, I live in Boston. There's no $6.99 parking tickets anywhere. So I started looking at the ticket more, and sure enough, there was no plate number, no date of the offense, no location of the offense, no vehicle description. I'm like, no, this is one of those freaking scams. And what it is, they figure that you're seeing. And the other thing was, it was listing the Boston DMV as the issuing court. The DMV is not a court, and officially, and it was literally had a judge's name on the thing. So my judge and DMV, no, this is clearly they're trying to scam you. So watch out, guys. Pay attention and stuff. With AI, these scams are getting to look really legit, but if you do the work, you can spot them. Look for obvious information that you can verify, and that's what saved me from entering my debit card into a website that would have drained my account, and I probably would have used the business card, and that's a lot of money. That could have been a horror show. Just be careful, guys. A little public service announcement. Again, I'm on my game. I caught it before it was a problem. I let Doug know. He's happy. So despite having a sore back and throwing up from a pill getting stuck in my throat, like I went on to have a fantastic day. I'm cleaning my house a bit more, doing some laundry tonight, gonna make a fantastic dinner. I did when I looked at the reading today, it was like, boom! I love this reading, guys. The reading today is the Just for Today NA meditation, and it is something that I live daily. It's near and dear to my heart. In the early days, it's about our own true will, and in other words, praying only for knowledge of God's will for you and the power to carry it out. Something I take very seriously, and something I attribute to most of my success to is aligning myself with the energy and the will of my higher power, because my will, as I've said so many times, just gets me in bad places. So, this is a fantastic reading, guys. Please take note. Our own true will. God's will for us consists of the very things we want, we most value. God's will, God's will becomes our own true will for ourselves. It's human nature to want something for nothing. We may be ecstatic when a store cashier gives us change for a 20 when we paid with a 10. We tend to think that if no one knows, one small deception won't make any difference. But someone does know, we know, and it absolutely makes a difference. What worked for us when we used frequently does not work in long-term recovery. As we progress spiritually by working the 12 steps, we begin to develop new values and standards. We begin to feel uncomfortable when we take advantage of situations that when we used would have left us gloating about what we had gotten away with. In our past, we may have victimized others. However, as we draw closer to our higher power, our values change. God's will becomes more important than getting away with something. When our values change, our lives change too. Guided by an inner knowledge given to us by our higher power, we want to live out our newfound values. We have internalized our higher power's will for us, and in fact, God's will has become our own true will for ourselves. And the affirmation is, just for today, by improving my conscious contact with God, my values have changed. Today, I will practice God's will, my own true will. And guys, again, that's one of those things where even in the beginning, I'm like, well, how do I identify God's will? And I questioned everything. And I'm so glad that I did, because I started to see how many areas I was wrong in. And again, but because I was praying and communicating with my higher power, that didn't overwhelm me. These things are so remarkably, profoundly simple, yet powerful. Like now, I know when I'm taking my will, because the second I start to, I get that ick, and I'm like, ooh, bad idea. This isn't the new me, and it gets to be less and less frequent. Not to say I'm perfect and I'm up here, no. But as I've done the work, and again, find a way to keep yourself plugged in. For me, the biggest thing, and my sponsor and I were talking about this today, Mike, I say this all the time. I knew when I had the idea to start this channel that it was something incredibly important. It was an internal battle that I was having the entire time I was in rehab. And I got, every morning I would pray and I'd meditate, and like, boom, you really got to do that. That's such a good idea. And then I'd go through the day and I'm like, well, I don't have any teeth and I'm embarrassed what I look like. I got the skin tag. I look ragged. Maybe if I get out and start going to the gym and get healthy, then I can start the channel. And I would just basically talk myself out of it all day long. And then boom, next day, get up, pray, meditate. No, you got to do it. And I was so on the fence. And I'm telling you, it was literally starting to bother me, because the more I rationalized it, the more I realized that my nature was to not follow doing things and to not make the necessary changes in my life. So as I started getting closer to the end, I started just really just cheering myself on and pushing. And again, if you follow the channel from day one, and I know we got a lot of new members, we always do, and I'm grateful for that. But I got home, and literally, guys, by the end of my 30 days in rehab, when I went to walk out, the entire staff lined up and were giving me hugs and high fives, and they had me in tears, and they're telling me that I was the person that made all the shit they put up with worthwhile, because every once in a while they got through to somebody. And I walked out of there, my head was this big, and I felt like $1 million, and I felt like, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm reading books on scientific prayer. I got this, I'm doing this, right? And I wasn't committed to going and finding a home group. I was bartering. I was so proud of myself, because I knew I had to go do the IOP, and that's something I'd always laughed at. But I hadn't bought into the fact that I was going to do everything. And I was still picking and choosing what I was going to do. And sure enough, I went straight from my rehab to my doctor's appointment, got my medically assisted treatment, got set up with them. It was going to be 3 or 4 days before I had my intake interview with the IOP, and I had no intention of doing anything up in between that time. I walked into my house, and sure enough, I'm like, oh, I got to clean this mess out of here. There was drugs everywhere. And as I was doing so, I picked up a pipe, and I found a rock of crack, and I threw it in the pipe and smoked it before I even realized what I was doing. The second I did it, guys, I was devastated, because that's just how easy in my past I've lost my sobriety. And I'm like, after the monumental work and emotions and everything I've been going through, I was just devastated. I'm like, is this how little defense I really have in front of it? Knowing I was trying to get the shit away from me, I'm still going to slip just because it's there. So rather than my baseline, which is, oh, throw my hands in the air, call the dope dealer, I already failed, I might as well get high and try again tomorrow. No, I dropped to my knees and I prayed. My God, what do I got to do? And immediately, God's will popped into my head. Everything. You got to do everything. You got to work your recovery. You got to chase recovery like you chase the drugs. And boom, that was a promise I'd made to myself. And it was instant communication with my higher power. So I'm like, okay, well, it's, 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, and I just get home. So first thing first, let's get out of the house. I walked across the house. And sure enough, I find a girl who's locked out of her car, and I end up, offering her a ride. And long story short, I end up getting her into her car and sending her on her way. And boom, suddenly I didn't feel all terrible, right? I know God put me in service of somebody else that made me feel better. And I'm like, see, isolated in my house by myself, bad things happen. Out doing good works, good things happen. So the next morning, I'm like, that's it. I'm producing my first YouTube video tonight, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, the whole point of this is to show the progression of getting out of addiction. And if you go look at my earliest videos, guys, I looked rough. I'm about 85 pounds heavier now. I've got a clarity. I literally, a year later, 15 months later, I look 10 years younger because I'm healthy today. My eyes were so sunk in the bags. I had the skin tag. I had no teeth. I was just withered away. I was beat. But as embarrassed as I was, God gave me his will for me was to start the channel. And I thought it was like, well, maybe I'm supposed to be some famous recovery dude. I was still pretty sick at that point, guys. It was 4 or 5 months down the road, as I did these things day in and day out, that I realized I was running around looking for every opportunity to make any and every difference in my community so I'd have something to make content about. It was making me pay super close attention to how I was feeling, what I was doing, who I was interacting with. That next morning when I decided to do the video, I also stepped outside to make some phone calls, and my next door neighbor, who I knew was in the in a 12-step program, come walking by, and I'm like, hey dude, can you get me to a meeting? And he brought me that Friday, to my first meeting of my home group, which I've gone, I think I missed a couple of Fridays in those early weeks for appointments and whatnot, but I joined that group. I now chair that meeting, and I have not missed, after that first month, I have not missed a single Friday, including the week that I went for surgery, because I had surgery on Sunday night. By that Friday, I was back at my meeting. Like, all these things came into play because I was listening for God's will, and then having the courage to act on God's will. And guys, it's one thing, and then in the past, I realized, in the past, I used to pray, and I'm sure I was getting answers, but I was overlooking them. I was allowing outside things to run me around, and listening to getting caught up in the gossip and the character assassinations and the need for the material things. This time I didn't, because I was listening for God's will. I realized I didn't need anything outside of God. God would put me wherever I need. And guys, I'm telling you, there was days, that first week out, I was still at my old job. I hadn't had any money. I was down to my last $20. My boss at the time, it was always a 50-50. We'd even get paid on Friday. And I'm listening to this gospel thing in the truck going to do a service call, and it's, give to charity, what you give will come back to you tenfold. And I got out of the truck at Faneuil Hall, and there's two people on the sidewalk begging for change. And I'm like, I got $20 to my name. And I had a 10 and 2 5, so I gave them each a 5. Gave them half of what I had. And then I walk in, and it was funny because I walk in, then I realized I had to go get a part to fix something that was going to be about $20, and I don't have the $20 anymore. And I'm like, oh, I'll figure, let me get to Home Depot, I'll have to call the boss, I'll have to give me the credit card. But I'm like, it's still, I knew I was doing the right thing, guys. I drive to Home Depot, I get out of my truck. This is the Salt Bay. There's hundreds of people out there begging, borrowing, stealing, scamming, drugging. The whole 9 yards is just, it's not the best place on the planet. I walked 20 feet and I looked down on the ground. There's a $100 bill sitting on the ground. I'm like, this thing could have been there for 3 seconds because it would have got scooped up. Boom. My $10 investment just came, my $10 charity just came back to me tenfold in a matter of minutes because I was paying attention. And I'm like, see, I felt so seen, so held, so understood, and I felt so full of hope. I didn't have any answers. I didn't have any confidence. I didn't have any good experience at that point. I just got out of rehab, and but it gave me the courage that I'm like, okay, well, what else do I need to? Well, I know working for this company is no good, and I don't do something about it, I'll be here for another 5 years. And again, that gave me, boom, I know God's with me, so this information I'm feeling in my heart is His will for me. And 2 days later, I quit my job. Boom, now look, I own a business. I've got all new contacts. I've got this whole beautiful new life that I'm building. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I'm well on my way, and I'm building it day in and day out. And things continue to get bigger and better, because not only do I take these tools of this program and I work them in my life, I take God's will for me and I make it my baseline. And every single night, every single morning, I ask, first of all, at night, I say my prayers and I thank Him for everything I have. Then I do meditation and subliminal hypnosis to improve my positive outlook. And I get up in the morning, and it doesn't matter who's calling or what's going on, it doesn't matter if the house is on fire. I drop to my knees and I say my prayers and I ask God to help me have knowledge of His will for me, give me the power to carry it out, let me be the best version of myself today, and let me make a difference somewhere in my community today. These are the things I ask for. And then, as I leave my house, if I'm about to have an old behavior pop up, no, I'm like, didn't I just have this conversation with my higher power? I know He's looking. So I had to stop all my little behaviors, like stealing little things, and if somebody over gives me change, I have to give it back. As a matter of fact, I was just at the grocery store, and I typically don't carry cash, but this morning I was going to a meeting, and I didn't have any money for the collection, so I stopped and took $10 out of the bank, and I walked in the grocery store, and I used my card for my groceries, but there's a girl outside, and she's just waving and asking for change, and I reached my wallet, and I gave her the $5 that I'd left over, and I'm like, oh, no big deal, but she's out there asking for quarters, and her eyes lit up on it. That $5 means nothing to me, but it made a difference. I'm not saying it's going to save her life, but at least I know she feels like somebody's giving her a little spark, and I don't know what she's doing with it, but I don't have to all the time. It doesn't mean I can't ever help out. I can just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and I felt in that moment it was God's will for me, because again, I don't have to question it anymore, because as I do these things day in and day out, I gotta, if you're from Boston, how many, every intersection we pull up at, there's somebody begging, and I pick and choose, not by my interpretation of them. It's when I pull up to the intersection and I feel God's will for me is to give somebody money, I stop and give money. Doesn't matter what sex, what race, what color, and I don't look at them and then decide as I'm pulling up, because again, I don't always have cash on me, but typically if I do have cash on me, it's because God wants me to help somebody out. And I'm telling you, so many times I have, and I'll always offer a little bit of advice. Hey, I'm in recovery. If you're struggling, this help. And oftentimes these people start telling me what's going on with them. And then I told you, I made a video one day about the kid I helped out. There was a kid that had some serious mental issues. He was off his rocker. But I sat and I listened to him for a half hour. And I was able to make a phone call and get him help and get him to a bed. And guys, I was walking 3 feet off the ground that day because I made a difference in somebody's. And again, I don't know if he stayed, but I did my part. I was able to help. God put me there in that moment to help him out. And if nothing else, I stopped his manic episode and calmed him down. And I got him at least, somewhere warm, because the winter was coming at that point. I got him somewhere warm for at least the night. That's when I know I'm doing God's will for me. When I come home at the end of the day and I do my inventory and I look at how my day went, I know whether I've done God's will or whether I've taken my will back. And I'm very happy. Another thing my sponsor and I were talking about today, is there anything I'm afraid to do? There really isn't at this point, because as things come up, I pray and I meditate on it. And if I believe it's God's will for me and it's something that will better myself or better my community, I do it. And if I can't do it all at the moment, I start taking steps to do so. That's why a year ago I was going to turn down taking the plumbing contract over on a new 3-family new construction. And this year I'm excited to do it, because when I was incapable of it last year and knew there was a good chance it would come up, I started working towards putting things in place so I knew I could take on. And now I look at the culmination of the jobs that I'm being offered this year, and I realize as good as last year was, this year's going to leapfrog right past it. And if I continue to do God's will for me, I will continue, because now I know God's will for me is to someday own sober houses and provide housing for recovering addicts, because that's my passion. It's the only next logical step. So I know it's His will for me, so I'll continue working towards it. And if I'm right and it is, then it will happen. And if not, I'll find out there's something else He's got planned for me, and I'll make the necessary pivots and adjustments. That's it, guys. So that's why I look so much younger. I don't have the stress of having to worry. What am I supposed to do? No, I keep it in the day. That's what I mean by, we keep it in the day so not only so we can stay clean in the day, but all your power is in the moment. If you're worrying about yesterday, you're wasting energy. If you're overly anxious about tomorrow, you're not focusing on what you need to do right now. But if you just do what you need to do to the best of your ability right now, and you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, tomorrow's going to be just fine. Guys, that's the video for today. Happy Sunday. Thank you so much for being here with me. Always remember, God loves you. I love you. We'll see you in the next one.